So we've been doing this thing called The Install. Each and every Wednesday for the past couple of years, Greg Cosell of NFL Films and myself. It's a great podcast. I'm not just saying that because I'm biased. Greg's insight and analysis, not just there, but on 3HL and everywhere else where he's been doing his work across many, many years. Not to age him. Greg, I can hear your laughter in the background, buddy. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you.
It's okay. It's okay.
But we've been doing the podcast, Greg, for a couple years now, and not to brag on ourselves, but we've had a lot of people enjoy the podcast, reach out about how much they like the podcast. And I don't know about you, buddy, but it feels like it's time for us to do something with the audience that has been subscribed to the podcast for the last couple of years.
So what'd you have in mind, Buck? Tell us.
Well, buddy, I think we better fly you down to Nashville on May the 20th for a special edition, a live taping of The Install at the Analog at the Hutton Hotel on Saturday, May the 20th. How's that sound to you?
Hey, I'm down coming to Nashville anytime. Sounds awesome to me.
Let's do it, Lucas. Let me get some crappy radio production around this. A round of applause for Greg Cosell coming down to Nashville to do the live version of The Install. It's going to be a great time. We're going to break down the 2023 Titans draft class. We'll be able to take some questions from the audience. We may even have a special guest or two stop by, and the tickets are officially on sale now at 1045thezone.com. Greg, I know you've done stuff like this in person here in Nashville before. You know how much the Titans fans appreciate all the work that you've done in providing them more insight and analysis on their favorite players and their favorite team. But I think this is going to be a really, really cool event, buddy.
Oh, man, Buck, I am super excited about this. Number one, I love coming to Nashville. Love hanging out with you, doing our install every single week. Now we get to do it live. Hopefully people are excited about it and really looking forward to it. Can't wait. What is it? It's a month away.
It's a month away tomorrow.
A month away. Yeah. Pretty excited.
Yeah, well, and certainly, Greg's. We're going to make sure that Greg has a good time in Nashville that whole weekend down here. But certainly, the install on Saturday, on May 20th, is going to be a great time as well. So why don't we give them a little taste, Greg? We know people have been listening to the podcast as we've been previewing position groups throughout the course of this draft, and then this draft lead up, and of course, the draft happening next week. I think the most interesting or the most diverse position group in this year's draft class, Greg, is the tight ends. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different flavors of tight ends, and my guess is, Buck, that this will be clearly in the eye of the beholder, that different people will have different views. When I say different people, different evaluators, coaches, teams will have different views on a lot of these tight ends. You know, with very few exceptions in college football, and there's always an exception or two, tight ends don't catch a lot of balls. You know, rarely do you look in college football and see tight ends with 85 catches. You know, there's a few. You know, obviously Michael Mayer from Notre Dame has a lot of catches. Dalton Kincaid from Utah is a really interesting player. He has catches. But a lot of these tight ends don't necessarily catch a lot of balls. Think back to George Kittle. I mean, George Kittle, obviously one of the best tight ends in the league. His last 2 years at Iowa, he caught 20 and 22 balls. So there's a lot of tight ends who don't have a lot of targets or receptions who are going to turn out to be very, very good NFL tight ends.
So with that being said, Greg, is there a particular reason? I know not all offenses in college are built similarly, but is there a particular reason why that's the case where you don't quite see that volume at that position?
Well, more college offenses, obviously, than not, again, there's always exceptions, are really based on some sort of spread principle. And normally with the spread principle, wide receivers are really the main targets. Yes, tight ends have changed over the years to where they're not glorified tackles as they were, 25, 30 years ago. For the people who are older, like myself, as you so clearly pointed out, Mr. Rising, people might remember in the mid-'90s that Kyle Brady came out of Penn State, and he was kind of a glorified tackle, and he was, I believe, might have been a top 10 pick in the draft. Players like that would never be drafted that high right now because you have to be a receiver first. So most of these spread offenses are built around wide receivers. So you rarely see tight ends, even if they play meaningful snaps, be prominent in the pass game.
I already apologized to you for aging you, Greg. I didn't mean to do it, bud.
I'll be reminding you of that constantly. Don't worry about it.
Greg Cosell of NFL Films here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Normally we record the episode of The Install on Wednesdays, but since we're announcing our live show today, we thought we'd just bring Greg on and talk a little shop here with you guys live on the radio show. So with that being said, Greg, I don't know. There's no fire-breathing tight end like Kyle Pitts in this year's class, but there's so many different ones, as you said, in the eye of the beholder that can benefit a lot of these NFL teams. The most well-rounded, though, at least when you watch him with the untrained eye that I have, or when people have seen Michael Mayer, the tight end at Notre Dame, he seems to be the most complete package, the one who has reliable hands, who has above-average route-running abilities. He can create separation for a guy who doesn't necessarily look like he runs all that well when you watch him, and a catch radius that is as impressive as any player at this position. Is that an accurate assessment that he is the most well-rounded in this group?
I think you probably could say that. I mean, look, you're not going to describe Mayer as smooth and fluid, and you're right. There are some times watching him, and I ended up watching him last summer, all of 2021, and then this year, 2022, obviously, and you never come away going, wow, that guy is just one hell of an athlete. You don't really think of him that way, but he does everything really well. He has a refined sense of route running. He's a very good blocker. He does create enough separation because he knows how to attack defenders. He's very good settling into open voids in zone. The more I watched Mayer, you know who I thought of? And for people from your area who go back a number of years, I actually thought of Jason Witten when he came out of Tennessee, which was in 2003. Now, he was a third-round pick, the 69th overall. Mayer will be drafted higher than that, but there's nothing wrong with being Jason Witten, by the way. Jason Witten's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Now, again, I'm not suggesting Michael Mayer will be, but I'm just talking about stylistically. I think they're similar. You never looked at Witten and went, wow, that is just an amazing athlete. Look at the juice he has. You never thought of that with Witten. And I think Mayer is the exact same way. I'm very curious to see where he gets drafted, but he's a complete tight end. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that by any stretch of the imagination. Certainly the Titans they think they may have found something in Chig, and there's certainly evidence last year in a smaller sample size to indicate that Chig is going to be a productive move tight end for them. But they do certainly require a player at that position who has more of those well-rounded abilities for as much two tight end personnel as they like to run here in Tennessee, Greg.
Yeah, and I think a lot of teams, not every, but a lot of teams play with two tight ends a meaningful amount. Even teams some people might not think of. The Chiefs, for instance, played about 40% of their offensive snaps this given season with multiple tight ends, two tight ends, three tight ends. The key to that is you need your tight ends to have versatility within your formation, because you don't want to just have tight ends that have to line up attached to tackles or in a wing position, which is essentially attached to some degree as well. So the key is versatility for the tight end, so they can line up anywhere. You can detach them, split them out, whether they're in the slot or even outside. That's the key if you're going to play with multiple tight ends. Otherwise, your offense becomes too predictable.
Greg Cosell of NFL Films is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. We're breaking down the tight end class, or some of the tight ends in this upcoming draft class in 2023, a live edition of the Install podcast that Greg and I do every Wednesday. Darnell Washington from Georgia is somebody who basically projects, or at least in college, was a sixth offensive lineman in the way that he was deployed. Showed a lot of athletic ability, obviously, at the combine and his pro day, Greg. And I don't, it seems like he is more likely to be a day 2 pick at this point, given the crowd of tight ends that may be able to go in the first round, but his skill set is so intriguing, and just the size is unbelievably overwhelming that he possesses.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that. We don't know where he'll get drafted, but it's very possible someone, because he has kind of a rare athletic measurables set for a tight end. I mean, you're right. He's big, but the 40 time was great. I mean, his short shuttle time, which a lot of people do look at because it shows quickness in a small area, was unbelievable. Plus, he has arm length. He's got a wingspan. He's got big, huge hands. Now, he doesn't play like that on tape, but it's, someone could look at all of that and say, you know what? He's an ascending player. He's an emerging player. We feel 2-3 years down the road, he could be absolutely special. Because when you watch him play, despite the rare size and overall length, and he can run fast in a straight line, but he's kind of awkward at times in the way in which he moves. So he doesn't play to what his athletic testing measurables are. But again, he could well be seen as an ascending talent that with coaching and development becomes a dominant player in 2 or 3 years.
I feel that way in terms of ascending player, and maybe it's just because injury robbed us of him for all but 2 games in 2022. But I feel that way about Luke Musgrave, the tight end from Oregon State, Greg. Even though he only appeared in 2 games, he had 11 receptions and 169 yards. It only takes a few minutes to go back and watch his snaps from last season. But in the games that he was in, it felt like their plan the entire time was just to get him the football. He's again got that size, 6'6", 252 pounds. Is what he measured at when last he was weighed and measured. He is somebody who I think excites a lot of people about that same potential, even if the sample size isn't quite there yet.
Well, what I did, of course, was go back and watch him in 2021, in
Right.
addition to the 2 games this year against Boise and Fresno State. And he has excellent size, as you said, Buck. He's a really smooth athlete that consistently showed up on tape. His releases off the line of scrimmage and his route running, I mean, he's really, really good at that. He has great separation quickness at the top of his route stem. He's kind of a strider. You want to, believe it or not, even though he's a very good blocker, and he certainly showed a commitment to run blocking. He was very controlled and efficient with his movement. He worked hard to sustain blocks. You can use him as a blocker in your run game, but he's kind of a strider. When he has a free release into his routes, he generates speed quickly. And he ran well for his size. He ran about a 4.6 40. He's got that easy acceleration. It doesn't look like he's moving fast, but he is. And he's really good on what I call movement routes, meaning seams, wheel routes, crossers, fades, routes where you're being thrown the ball while you're on the move, not where you're stopped and sitting. So we'll see. I mean, he was attached to the formation a good percentage of his snaps at Oregon State. I mean, he was not really a detached split player, but I think he has those traits.
Greg, I am curious, nothing to do with tight ends here, but if you are coming to town more for Buck or more for Billy Joel?
That's Lucas, Greg. I don't know if this is the first time that you're meeting him, but this is my executive producer who regularly undermines.
I was literally next to you at the combine.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, we chatted before, so I'll take the 5th on that one if that's okay.
That does not inspire confidence in me, teammate. But listen, I would also be here for Billy Joel instead of me.
Buck, your favorite Billy Joel song?
My favorite Billy Joel song?
Yes.
Piano Man.
You said it with a question mark at the end.
That's an easy one because that's probably the biggest hit.
Well, it's because I'm scared, Greg. It's because I'm scared I was going to say the wrong thing. Like, I like Billy Joel. I'm just not somebody who's going to be able to rattle off the classics like that.
Well, because I've seen him numerous times and, he's one of my favorites. I can go deep into the catalog. So a lot of my favorites are not the ones that probably, everybody would just know offhand.
Well, Lucas has been in my ear this entire segment saying he's not coming to hang out with you. He's coming to do the concert. I know, Lucas. We understand. Greg Cosell of NFL Films is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Last one for you, Greg, just because it's in the news cycle, and I appreciate your time, buddy. I'm really, really excited about this live show that we're going to do.
Oh, me too. I'm very much excited about it because, as you know, Buck, I've been to Nashville numerous times, and I never mind taking a trip down to Music City, believe me.
No, certainly we know how to show people a good time, and we always appreciate good people who are willing to spend their time down here.
No, and I imagine that there will be a good time had by all while I'm there. I'm hopeful anyway.
Certainly so. This live taping of the install, by the way, before we get Greg one more question, then let him get back to grinding the tape. A month from tomorrow, May the 20th, at Analog in the Hutton Hotel. Tickets available for purchase at 1045thezone.com as Greg and I will break down the 2023 Titans draft class for you guys live. It'll be a lot of fun. Greg, Trey Lance is in the news only because a Rappaport is saying that the 49ers are taking calls on him, not actively shopping him, but taking calls on him as they explore their future feasibility at quarterback, and Brock Purdy not at this point looking like he's going to have to miss an entire season. There's so little tape to analyze on Trey Lance. I wonder how somebody like you, who formulates fact-based opinions off the tape, looks at a project still like Trey Lance and tries to get a grasp on him.
It's really difficult, Buck, being honest. I mean, he has not played a lot of football in a long time. Let's see, the COVID year was what year? 2020 or 2020, wasn't it?
Yes, correct.
So the last time he really played meaningful football was 2019. So that's a long time ago. So it's really difficult to get a feel for where he stands in his development. It's easy now for people to say, well, he's not going to make it. We don't know that. But I would imagine even for teams that, they would struggle. Now, from everything I've heard, he's an unbelievable kid, a great guy to be around.
Mm-hmm.
Teammates love him. And that's obviously all good things as opposed to bad things. But it's really difficult because when you watched his tape, which I did, in 2019 at North Dakota State, I even then, as much as I liked his traits, I said to myself, 3 years down the road, he'd have a chance to be a really good player. Now, saying that, I thought he'd be playing in those 3 years, and obviously he's not played. So now it's almost like you're starting those 3 years now, and he would have a ways to go, but he is talented. He's supposed to be very intelligent, but intelligence has many forms. Whether he sees the field well, that's different from being intelligent. That's a football kind of intelligence. That's different. We don't really know the answer to those questions.
Yeah, unfortunate for Trey Lance because it seems like he had a lot of promise and just the circumstances not been able to work out, and his body letting him down in a couple of spots. Greg Cosell of NFL Films, kind enough to make some time in his busy schedule to join us as we are excited to announce that live taping of The Install with Greg here in Nashville. I'm going to be hosting. We're going to have a few more announcements around this to make with some people that we think are going to be able to stop by and break down the 2023 Titans draft class with us. May the 20th, Saturday, May the 20th, the Analog at Hutton Hotel. Tickets available right now at 1045thezone.com. Greg, it's always great to chat. A little different time today, but always good to talk shop, and can't wait to get you down here, buddy, and have a great time hanging out with the audience and maybe a little Billy Joel in between.
Hey, can't wait to be there, Buck. Thanks so much. Really looking forward to it.
That's Greg Cosell, kids. Kind enough to hang out with us on 1045.